Unraveling QuadrigaCX, the crypto scandal of a fake death. In 2019, the cryptocurrency world was rocked by a scandal that seemed straight out of a thriller. The sudden death of Gerald Cotten, the founder and CEO of QuadrigaCX, Canada's largest cryptocurrency exchange, left investors locked out of nearly $250 million in customer funds. But as the dust settled, investigations uncovered a far darker, far more perplexing story involving missing passwords, frozen accounts, and a man who might have faked his own death. How could an industry built on transparency and cryptography collapse so spectacularly? More importantly, how did so many ordinary people lose their life savings? This is the story of QuadrigaCX, a cautionary tale at the intersection of crypto's Wild West and modern financial fraud. To understand the fallout, you first need to grasp the basic economic mechanism behind cryptocurrency exchanges. These platforms act as intermediaries where buyers and sellers trade digital assets, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and hundreds of altcoins. Unlike traditional banks regulated by governments, crypto exchanges mostly operate in a regulatory gray area. They hold immense pools of customer funds in digital wallets secured by cryptographic keys. These keys are essentially passwords that give access to the cryptocurrencies stored on the blockchain. If the keys are lost or stolen, the coins are gone. Forever. QuadrigaCX started in 2013 as a modest operation in Vancouver, founded by Gerald Cotten, a 30-year-old Canadian who quickly built a reputation as an ambitious entrepreneur in crypto circles. By 2018, QuadrigaCX had become Canada's largest cryptocurrency exchange, processing roughly $190 million in daily volume. It held vast amounts of Canadian dollars and digital currencies on behalf of roughly 115,000 customers across the country. Unlike regulated exchanges in the US or Europe, Quadriga operated with minimal oversight, a fact that would prove disastrous. The trouble began in late 2018 when Gerald Cotten died unexpectedly on December 9th. Reportedly from complications related to Crohn's disease while traveling in India. His sudden death triggered a crisis. Cotten was the only person known to have access to the exchange's cold wallets, offline computers where the vast majority of Quadriga's crypto reserves were supposedly stored, out of reach from hackers. Without Cotten's passwords, Quadriga said it could no longer access the majority of its customers' funds. What followed was an unraveling of trust and a series of baffling revelations. Quadriga filed for creditor protection in January 2019, with debts totaling CAD $215 million, about 165 million USDs at the time, making it the largest crypto bankruptcy in Canadian history. Customers scrambled for answers. How could a platform holding their life savings lose access to billions? Regulators and courts launched investigations, and in the months that followed, experts began to challenge the official narrative. A forensic accounting report commissioned by the court painted an alarming picture. QuadrigaCX didn't actually have the millions of dollars in crypto it claimed to hold. Instead, the exchange apparently spent customer funds to cover operating costs and to prop up its own liquidity, essentially functioning like a Ponzi scheme. The report estimated that more than CAD $115 million vanished into thin air, with about $28 million misappropriated to cover personal expenses of Cotten and a small group of insiders. More strikingly, the official story that Cotten died on a remote trip in India began to face scrutiny. Some legal experts and journalists questioned the veracity of the death certificate and the logistics of how Cotten's widow, Jennifer Robertson, gained control of the wallets and passwords in the weeks following his death. Investigators also uncovered that Quadriga's cold wallets were not cold at all. In fact, much of the crypto had already been moved or traded. There were indications that Cotten was the architect of an elaborate fraud, raising suspicions that he might have faked his own death to escape creditors and legal responsibility. Despite extensive searches, no physical evidence of Cotten's body was ever produced, and no public record of a death certificate issued by Indian authorities was released. So how did this chaos come to be? The mechanics behind the Quadriga collapse reveal glaring weaknesses in cryptocurrency exchange operations. A mix of centralized control, lack of transparency, and insufficient regulatory oversight. Typically, established exchanges like Coinbase or Binance operate with corporate governance, multiple key holders in multi-signature wallets, and strict regulatory compliance measures involving audits, insurance, and customer protections. These systems are designed to prevent a single individual from controlling or losing access to customer funds. Quadriga, by contrast, had a highly centralized setup where Gerald Cotten was the sole key holder. This meant that customer deposits could only be accessed with his private cryptographic keys. When Cotten died, or allegedly died, the exchange was effectively locked. But deeper analysis showed that the loss of keys was only part of the story. Court documents revealed that Quadriga did not maintain audited accounting books, failed to segregate customer and company funds, and routinely issued false account balances on its website. In effect, Quadriga was running a shadow bank, accepting deposits while using funds to pay out earlier customers and finance Cotten's lifestyle. By the time the house of cards collapsed, the majority of customer assets were gone or inaccessible. The official insolvency trustee later estimated that the actual cryptocurrency holdings were worth approximately CAD $13 million, a fraction of the owed liabilities. For the hundreds of thousands of Quadriga customers, the consequences were devastating. Many were everyday Canadians who had pooled their savings into Bitcoin and Ethereum during the 2017-2018 crypto boom. For some, Quadriga was their first and only gateway into digital assets. Losing access to their accounts meant tens of thousands of dollars vanished overnight. Retirement funds, down payments, small business capital, all irreversibly locked. The Canadian government and financial regulators came under pressure, triggering a wake-up call about the risks surrounding cryptocurrencies and unregulated exchanges. The case exposed serious gaps in the country's Financial Consumer Agency's regulatory framework for crypto businesses, which lacked clear rules and enforcement powers. In response, Canadian securities regulators moved to tighten oversight. By 2020, provinces implemented more stringent registration rules for crypto exchanges, including mandatory audits, capital requirements, and operational transparency. The case also spurred calls for federally coordinated crypto regulations, though as of mid-2024, Canada remains fragmented in its approach. Internationally, QuadrigaCX was not the first cryptocurrency exchange scandal, but it became a textbook example of how centralized control and poor governance create systemic risks in digital finance. Globally, crypto markets are still grappling with similar vulnerabilities, from the infamous Mt. Gox collapse in 2014, which lost $460 million of customer funds, to the more recent 2022 FTX bankruptcy that froze billions in investor money. These failures highlight a fundamental paradox in cryptocurrencies: the promise of decentralized, trustless systems versus the operational realities that often recreate opaque, centralized power structures behind the scenes. QuadrigaCX, with its outsized control by one person, is emblematic of this tension. Beyond the mechanics of crypto exchanges, Quadriga raised profound legal and ethical questions. How is responsibility assigned when digital keys disappear? Can a company's founder fake death and flee with client funds? What protections exist when cryptographic assets fall outside traditional bankruptcy laws? Gerald Cotten's disappearance dovetailed with complex offshore corporate structures tied to Quadriga. Financial investigations traced links to shell companies in the Seychelles and Bermuda, suggesting a labyrinthine network designed to obscure money flows. This sophistication points to premeditated fraud rather than simple mismanagement. Meanwhile, Jennifer Robertson, Cotten's widow and executor of his estate, became embroiled in legal disputes with creditors over control of digital assets potentially recoverable from Cotten's personal wallets. In 2020, she agreed to a settlement to relinquish over CAD $20 million in funds and assets. Despite ongoing court cases and law enforcement investigations in Canada and abroad, Cotten himself remains missing. No credible sightings, no death certificate publicly verified, no body recovered. His alleged death is the linchpin of the entire collapse narrative, and its mystery keeps speculation alive. The QuadrigaCX scandal is not just a story about cryptocurrency. It's a powerful lens into the challenges of financial innovation outpacing regulation and governance. It underscores the peril when enormous amounts of wealth are concentrated under the control of a single individual without transparency. For investors and consumers, the saga is a stark reminder that technological advancements do not eliminate risk. Crypto assets, valuable and enticing, carry hidden vulnerabilities, especially in exchanges that act as custodians. The loss of Quadriga's $250 million in customer funds erased confidence for many Canadians in digital currencies and prompted a rethink of how these platforms should be supervised. Economically, this collapse rippled beyond individual wallets. Quadriga was one of Canada's top cryptocurrency exchanges, handling an estimated 5% of Bitcoin trading volume globally at its peak. Its shutdown reduced liquidity in the Canadian crypto market and contributed to a temporary contraction in crypto adoption across the region. Globally, the incident fueled calls for international cooperation to regulate crypto markets uniformly. Cryptocurrency's borderless nature challenges national regulators, requiring cross-jurisdictional frameworks to monitor and intervene when fraud occurs. The QuadrigaCX narrative also highlights how trust in financial systems operates in unexpected ways. Even though blockchain transactions are public and transparent, the custody of assets resides with centralized entities like exchanges. That concentration reintroduces classic financial risks: embezzlement, misappropriation, mismanagement, masked by crypto's aura of innovation. Ultimately, QuadrigaCX is a lesson in how foundational financial infrastructure must be built on robust governance, with multi-party controls, independent audits, and legal protections, rather than sole reliance on technocratic innovation or charismatic leadership. The mechanics here were shockingly simple. A charismatic founder with sole control over digital keys, no independent oversight, customer funds commingled with company assets, and a suspicious death. Taken together, these factors allowed a perfect storm of fraud and collapse. As cryptocurrency matures, the QuadrigaCX debacle serves as an essential chapter in the ongoing struggle between decentralization's promise and the realities of trust and security. It warns investors to demand transparency and regulators to act preemptively before the next crash wipes out another generation of hopeful investors. In the end, the most compelling mystery remains this: did Gerald Cotten truly perish alone in India, or did he vanish into the digital shadows he helped create? The answer continues to elude authorities and victims alike, leaving QuadrigaCX as a grim milestone in crypto's history, a story where millions disappeared in bytes and whispers. For those still drawn to cryptocurrency's potential, the lesson is clear. Technology cannot replace governance. Cryptography cannot substitute accountability. And no amount of decentralization can prevent the human flaws of greed, secrecy, and hubris from unraveling even the most revolutionary financial experiments. If you found this story interesting, hit that like button and subscribe so we can keep making these videos. Tomorrow, we are diving into a story that is just as shocking: Olympus Corporation, the 30-year Japanese cover-up. You will not want to miss it. I will see you there.